next on the list, we have Janice. Now, Janice is like my sister from another mother. We have so much in common. And those who know me, I have a love of two things, food and community. And one fun fact, and this is exactly what I say, is food nourishes the soul. It fosters community and embodies love. Like, that's exactly what I believe in. So that's why we're so connected. Janice, come on down. Give her a hand.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here, and thank you to our host this evening. I'm going to try and look at this screen in front of me, but I might tilt my head from time to time. My name is Janice Bartley, and I am the founder of Foodpreneur Lab, which was created in 2019 and transitioned to non-for-profit status in 2020. Foodpreneur Lab was created from identifying a gap from working in the industry as an entrepreneur for 3 decades, working in the hospitality and the culinary field, and also being a general manager in an accelerator incubator space for food, and recognizing the lack of representation in a space that I could not wrap my head around. And so I did some more due diligence, and I realized that there was an opportunity to help bring our ideas, our recipes, our identities, and really represent in the market. Um, so we are a Black-led non-for-profit focused on creating a more inclusive and equitable food ecosystem. Our mandate really is about access. And I think throughout this entire presentation, you've been hearing two words, access and barriers. And those are the realities of what we face day to day. And so my mission is to make sure I create more access and I remove barriers. That's my job. And so we work to empower underrepresented and racialized communities um, by really bringing cultural, meaningful food to the market. And how do we do that? The Canadian food ecosystem is probably by far one of the best, but it is extremely to navigate. You speak to any food entrepreneur, they will tell you the stories of, oh, I made this product and I put this label on, but when I went to, I'm not going to name any specific places, but when I went to X, Y, and Z, I found out my labels did not meet Canadian Food Inspection Agency requirements. I did not have the testing. And so all that money that was spent in the raw inputs, the produce to make it, you now have to go and backtrack. And that normally comes to the tune of $5,000. So imagine you spent $5,000, you made a batch, and your potential client that you've envisioned is going to be your ideal customer says to you, great product, but we can't bring it in the store. And so this is where Foodpreneur Lab comes in. What we do is we help food entrepreneurs in the ideation stage. So if you have an idea, but you're not quite sure how to get it to prototype, that's where we come in. Or if you have an existing product, food product that you're working with and you're already in the market, but you're struggling to scale, in other words, you've been going to markets and you can't get beyond the market, we help you with that. And what I've learned through this is it has nothing to do with ability. It has to do with lack of information and access to information. And so I've made it my mandate to ensure that as a community, underrepresented and racialized, we all have access to that. Thank you. So in my journey, I always used to say, hey, what if one day we could go to a place where all the farmers live together and we could just press a button and say, hey, I need a bushel of callaloo or I need a box of red peppers. And voila, 5 years later, I meet Claudius, we start talking, and I'm invited to the table and Fred appears. And sometimes that's what they say when you put your wishes out there, it appears. And so Claudius and I and a bunch of other partners, we've been talking and we said, okay, this is how we could collaborate. So my contribution to this event is really what's the impact that Fred has when it comes to consumer packaged goods? And that is, how do the farmers, what role do the farmers play? And it's an integral one. So as we know, Fred is the digital platform where collectively underrepresented farmers have a place where they can bring their produce, have awareness and a visibility. And we as value-added producers, the users, can now choose as opposed to trying to figure out where am I going to get my hot peppers this week if I'm making a chili oil? Where am I going to get my raw inputs? Because one of the problems we have in the food ecosystem when it comes to food entrepreneurs is inconsistency. We buy from one place this week and we go back and the raw input isn't there. And so we have to find an alternative. And sometimes the alternative is not to the same standard. And so that is a customer letdown. That is a model for failure. And so we want to limit that. And so having that platform will help give consistency as well. So with Fred, we now have a source. We can actually go to all these farmers. We can now choose from the variety of products. We can be introduced to new products. And more importantly, we can now have engagement. And this is where Foodpreneur Lab comes in with regard to the consumer packaged goods. So what are the needs that Fred addresses? It reduces the sourcing costs because now value-added producers are not spending time running around trying to go to wholesalers, A1s, cash and carry stores. They can actually go to a farmer and say, hey, listen, this is what I need on a consistent basis. Can you supply that for me? We can actually have deliberate conversation, intentional conversations. It will help guarantee the supply chain. Now I know who I can go to get consistent product, or if I need to change my recipe, I can now have the conversations before I do anything else. Access to unique ingredients is extremely important because that is where a lot of the innovation happens as well. As food entrepreneurs develop products, they always looking for what else can I bring to market? Whether I'm using the same base and I'm adding something else to it to make it a little bit different, it's beneficial for any business. Any good business has more than one sales revenue stream. Increase product efficiencies, enhance brand reputation. The brand reputation is very important, especially in the food ecosystem, because every food entrepreneur, if you go to our website, we've been fortunate to support 200 Black food entrepreneurs. Thank you. Every food entrepreneur that has come through Foodpreneur Lab on our program has a marketing video online that they can now, thank you, and we have evidence here. Why is that important? It tells the brand story. It tells where the idea comes from. It tells about the familial and cultural history that's so important, and it connects with their consumers. And so I always talk about relationships is what drives business, not necessarily the widget or the product that you're selling. It's how we engage with each other. And so being able to have that brand recognition, to be able to name a farmer in your Instagram, on your product, and blow that farmer up because of the amazing product that they have and it's organic, it doesn't get better than that. And so we have to look at who our customer base is. I talk about that a lot because it's not people that we are feeding today. It's 5 and 10 years from now. And I can tell you, we have the savviest teenagers out there that can tell you where it's produced, who's producing it, if there's child labor in law, and they can go down the list, okay? And here's the other piece. That is how they determine brand loyalty. So you have to check all those boxes because now there is actually food accountability. And so the other thing that we look at having Fred allows us to reduce transportation costs. The shorter the distance from farm to table, the healthier it is, okay? I was doing farm to table 15 years ago, 20 years ago when I was in the culinary field. And I was really taken aback where everybody was, oh, farm to table, it's a trend. And I'm like, no, it's not. When you grow it in the farm, you pick it up, you take it to the table. It's that simple. But I'm happy to see 15, 20 years now it is actually embedded in how we eat, where we source our food. And we're now paying more attention to how we eat and how healthily we're eating for our families, because that's extremely important. Um, Improved product innovation. I saw that Area X, is it Area X? Area X so is amazing. I love seeing that because having those accelerators, incubator styles allows us as a community to capacity build, to look on ways where we can innovate. And farmers, I would say, have been left out of that. We tend to skip to where we're getting the ingredients and then we get to the consumer packaged goods. And I always said we have to go back, but more importantly, here are why the farmers are important, especially for me. Our youth needs to understand there's an opportunity and there's innovation for them to participate in. And the longer we take to introduce them and get them on the farms and get them in the field, not necessarily to work the field, but to understand how integral the soil is, what makes good soil, what can you grow, how can you grow, and how can you innovate. And so they really need to be out there in the practical sense to see the possibilities that exist. And I say that because it's very important, because as a woman of color, when I go out and I speak to everybody, I have young people that coming up to say, I like what you do, but I don't know how to get there. And it always comes back to lack of information. So as a community, we now have to start sharing access, sharing information, building on our network and saying, hey, you have an idea? This is where you go. You want to borrow some money? This is who I've dealt with. And so that builds the narrative and the support as well. Increased market access. We've done some amazing work. We have taken our food entrepreneurs to Restaurants Canada. This was our second year of the first Black Experience Pavilion. That was never done before. We had 80 plus Black food created products. And so again, this is why we need the farmers. If we don't have you there that we can tap into, then it alters our ability to grow as well. And of course, the obvious, it brings stronger community ties. So the purpose of Fred really is to look at the cost savings that are going to be built around that, because it does have an impact. So if you are making a product, you know directly if you can go directly to your farmer, that's a cost saving and one less headache. Improved accessibility, the more selection that you have. Inclusivity, it is representative. I think somebody was Foozing out before that was saying, as we're going through the grocery stores, we're seeing less and less of cultural foods. We have to change that. We do have control of what we grow and what we sell, believe it or not. Reduced food insecurity. I think that is part of the holistic approach with Fred as well, which is another benefit. I think once you have communities coming together, once this digital platform is created and you actually have a central point where it could drop off, pick up, and that could brand out into communities, I think that will also enhance food security as opposed to food insecurity as well. Enhanced transparency. Again, the narrative about where did I buy my raw inputs and the story behind that. And the last one, empowering farmers. You all have a story to tell, and I think it's imperative that you tell those stories. So for me, my role is to work with Claudius and Fred, but to also work those farmers, because at some point I would like to tell your stories through Foodpreneur Lab. Because those who are making the food need to understand the love that goes into growing and understanding the mechanics of growing as well. And so when you look at Fred's pathway, we start with underrepresented farmers, where it connects the farmers who grow and sell organic and culturally diverse foods. And then the platform itself serves as a marketplace, allowing farmers to sell and list. And then the consumer can now discover and purchase a wide variety of organic and culturally grown foods through Fred, increasing health, wellness, and community access. It also creates a community food marketplace. It gives you options between brick and mortar, and it enables more options to source and sell organic and culturally diverse foods. And make no mistake, we talk about culturally diverse food. At the end of the day, I always say food is a great conversation piece. We have difficult conversations around the table. What's in front of us? Food. We have loving conversations. What's in front of us? Food. When you find somebody and you're in love with, what do you want to do? You want to take them to dinner. You want to feed them. When you're sick, what do you want to do? You want to give them food and you want to make them healthy. When they're thin, the only time you don't want to feed them is when they're too big. And even then, that's not an issue depending on who you speak to, okay? So food is really integral to how we show up, how we function, how we think, our mental well-being, our health. And it's so important, and yet we tend to push it off to the side to look at other things. And I really welcome the opportunity to talk about, again, the farmers. I'm sending you flowers because you are so integral to this ecosystem. One of the things I've always said, everybody says tech, 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 and I always say you can't eat tech. I need food. Tech is great, but we need the food as well. And so lastly, on the consumer packaged goods side, we get to support value-added producers in the CPG marketplace, providing access to diverse, high-quality organic food. And if you have time before our session ends, you can see some amazing food products. With those 200 Black food entrepreneurs we've supported, we've developed over 120. One of them is One More Cocoa, who won Oprah's 2023 Favorite Things. One was from Infused Fruit, which won the Canadian Retail Grocery Award, first Black company to ever do that. And so it has never been about ability. I have to keep saying that. It has been about how to create access so we can show up and show out. And nothing has changed from the day I believe that to the day that I'm standing in front of you saying all these things. And so what's the impact and reach of Fred? Well, geographic accessibility, the reach will be 75% because now we can reach more people, we can increase visibility, and we can strengthen local food. The economic accessibility impact will be approximately 60% because it will help bridge the gap between farmers and urban markets, forecast supply and demand, which will be a reduction in waste as well, and streamline operations and fosters collaborations with others. It will also have 85% cultural relevance in terms of its usage, which will revolutionize engagement. Why? It hasn't been done before. And so having said that, it will offer access to markets, which will equal sustainable growth, real-time data, and this is extremely important. The fact that when the farmers put their product on the platform, two things happen. The value-added user can now gauge how much raw inputs they will be purchasing for an entire year, and they can have a better idea of what their inventory inputs look like. On the flip side of that, the farmers can anticipate what that growth will look like, what demand will look like. That is significant because we're not just growing for the idea of just growing. We're growing intentionally now because we know we have silos to fill with regard to demand. And on community engagement, it becomes an invaluable tool for food access for sales, as well as fosters community networks. And I really look forward to that part. And so to recap, the Farming Resource for Equitable Distribution, FRED, offers a comprehensible solution to connect underrepresented farmers to value-added producers, consumers, and communities. My part is just one part on the value-added producers. There's also the consumer aspect and the community aspect. And so as you can see, there's an exponential potential here with having FRED launched. It will also contribute to the reduction of food insecurity and increased community wellness because the access would have been shortened, but the choice broadened for consumers as well. It will also improve accessibility. It will support inclusivity, similar to Foodpreneur Lab, where we represent a very large part of the Black diaspora. You name them, we got them, okay? Ugandan, Nigerian, Jamaican, Trinidadian, yes, we're there, okay? And it fosters equitable and sustainable food systems. And the last part I will have to say is building on Foodpreneur Lab, I've had the honor and having the trust of the Black diaspora. And I can tell you, when we get together and we start working together, we do amazing things. And they have shown up and shown out in that way. And I want to give them their flowers. So thank you, everyone. And I appreciate your time.
So scan the code here. If you want to find more about Foodpreneur Lab. Janice, that was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done. So does everyone have the scan of that QR code?